So I know some of you guys hate it when I talk about philosophy too much. Philosophy for the sake of philosophy. I hate that too, actually. And I'm going to quote a short little paragraph from a philosophy book. But look what the book is about. That is interesting, isn't it? So just short, sweet, painless little paragraph. As Dewey understands it, John Dewey, the American pragmatist, inquiry is a mode of seeking reintegration when equilibrium is threatened. Knowledge and belief are not states of mind separate from the world. They are the respite, or in other words, the satisfaction, that comes when successful inquiry ushers in a new equilibrium replacing the old, no longer adequate patterns of interaction. From this perspective, knowledge is not a mental state. It is an activity, a way of being in the world. So, we think we know ourselves. That's the definition of an ego. The ego is the one that drives everything else around and picks and chooses and flatters itself, basically, at every opportunity by seeking after its own interests. It's motivated purely by the pleasure principle. The ego is just a very simple thing. It doesn't really think about much more than how am I going to get what I want. And it's a hungry ghost because it's ultimately doesn't even exist. It's empty of any self-abiding permanency. But it keeps eating. It wants more and more and more. But it never gets anything. And it's always hounded by the superego, which is really the other. The superego is God. The superego is, all you people that judge me. I still have access to your judgments. That's my superego. It's my sense of morality. My sense of, wow, what would others think? That's the superego. And then there's the unconscious, which is, Freud separated the superego from the unconscious. Jung didn't. Jung saw the unconscious as having both a positive side and a negative side. And I think that's probably more accurate. Because the unconscious is sort of the underlying unity beneath all of us. The superego is, in Freud's view, would have been the upper rationalization of, the surface of society, the way we like to admit that we are, not the way we actually are, but the way everybody talks about the world and ourselves as if we were this ideal image. Because Freud wants to reduce everything to the pleasure principle. And so those higher aspirations like genuine love and morality and all religion, it's all just sexuality that got repressed and twisted up into culture somehow. But Jung didn't do that. Jung saw the unconscious, the shadow, and the soul as these weird dancing partners that are sort of in this relationship with one another. That's interesting. If I were to try to let my shadow out right now, I couldn't. The shadow is something that I don't have control over. My shadow is made evident by what I do, but I'm not in control of it. Because my shadow is your shadow. If you see my shadow, that's your shadow. You don't see my shadow. And yet there's only one shadow. There's only one mind. Only one consciousness. Only one unconsciousness. What about me, right? Trying to get myself off the hook. Trying not to let the shadow come out. What would my shadow say? My shadow would probably say I'm a narcissist. I think I'm very narcissistic, but I'm so narcissistic. I love myself so much that the extreme guilt that I feel as a result of that sort of forces me to see everyone else as myself. And so I love everyone because I love myself. I think this makes it difficult for me to fall in love with one other person. And maybe that's not true. Maybe the right one just hasn't come along. But I think the right one would be one who realized that I love you, yeah, and we're together. But it's not as though you individually are more important. My relationship with you is important. But everybody is important. Everybody is the same gets the same amount of love. There's a romantic love for the one I'm in a relationship with, but I think being narcissistic, loving yourself, it's not. I mean, it sounds on the face of it like it's a shitty way to be. You're selfish and all you care about is yourself, but that's not what it means. Uh, that's one level of it, one layer. But you peel layers away and you see that everything is connected to everything else. There's no two facts in isolation, no two people in isolation, no two events in isolation. And you hear about that a lot, really. Males that are spiritual and or religious in whatever way tend to be narcissistic. And maybe the spirituality is an expression of trying to be relieved of that narcissism in some way, being overly sensitive to the ego may cause this higher expression of this more devoted seeking after something beyond that. But I think that's enough for now.